In this film, we're going to be creating that shapes project, but we're going to be using a specific color scheme called monochromatic. So I'm going to take you through the process, and what I'd like you to do is open Photoshop and work alongside me. So anytime during the movie right now you'd like to go ahead and work on the specific spot in the project, go ahead and do that. So you can pause this little movie and go to Photoshop and do the steps that we just went over. So I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch again by opening a new file. I'm going to call it Shapes 2 Color Scheme. Again, in here, in our presets, we were using US paper, which gives us 8.5 by 11, but I'd like you to go now to photo, and in photo we get another drop-down choice down here, and we're going to be doing portrait 5 by 7. So go ahead and choose those. We're going to leave the resolution the same, and we're going to make our transparent background so that we can see where the transparent areas are. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. I have my file and I do Command R, so now I look up here at my ruler bar and on the side to make sure that I've in fact done 5 by 7 inches and not 5 by 7 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and use my method over here to make a new layer. I'm going to call it circle. And in here, when we create our circle, we're going to take the marquee tool. We're going to hold down the mouse. We're going to take the elliptical marquee tool to make our circle. But in this project, we're going to hold the Shift key while I drag this circle out. And what that does, it gives me an absolute perfect circle. And we talked about creating a monochromatic color scheme, and what I've chosen to do is I've chosen all the different blues. So I'm going to be creating this whole project with all tints and shades of blue. And in order to find those colors in an easy way, a nice thing to do is to double click the foreground color down here, and look what I get. I get this color picker, which has just tons and tons of colors that I can use. And every time I move my cursor over this area, I get a different shade of blue. If I slide these triangles up and down, this ribbon over here of color, I can actually go right here and say, okay, all these colors are monochromatic because they're all different shades of pink and red. But I'm going to be choosing blues, so I'm going to come down here into this blue area, and I'm going to do my whole project using all colors from here. So I'm going to use my first color. I'm going to choose blue, and I'm going to go ahead up to Edit and Fill, just like we did in the other movie. I'm going to use foreground color and click OK. I'm going to deselect this. Remember, there's 2 ways to do that, 3 ways. I'm going to go ahead up here to deselect under the Select menu, and I'm going to click and turn those little marching ants off. I'm going to use this method again to make my new layer, and I'm going to call this one Square. I'm going to go ahead. So here we have the layer. We named the layer. We double click the color. I'm going to pick my color. I'm going to make this one a little bit darker. Say OK. And again, on this layer, I'm going to hold my Shift key again, oops, that's a circle. Wrong, Mrs. DeFazio. So go ahead and deselect that. So I did not get the proper tool. I'm going to hold my mouse down here, select a rectangular marquee tool again, holding that Shift key down while I'm dragging, and I get just this perfect square with all sides all even. I'm going to double click, make sure I've chosen a different color. I like that nice darker color. And again, I'm going to do Edit, Fill, Foreground Color. Just like we did the first 2 times, it's just as easy, and say OK. I'm going to deselect this before I create my next shape. I'm going to create a new layer again, new layer, and I'm going to call this Free Shape. And we're going to go ahead and select the lasso tool by pressing the letter L on the keyboard, and the lasso tool looks like that little rope. I'm going to make sort of a free shape here, maybe like a little heart. So I've made my layer, I've chosen my tool and made my shape, and now all I need to do is choose my color, and I think I'm going to even make a darker color. Maybe this little heart shape will be a darker blue. Notice we're using monochromatic colors, foreground colors, say OK. So if you would like to pause this movie now and set this up right now, you can go ahead, or you can continue on with me. In the second part of this movie, we're going to go ahead and deselect this heart. we're going to create the clouds layer. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer again, up here, a new layer. I'm going to call it clouds. Remember, I'm going a little quicker this time because we've done this many times before. I think I'm going to use these two colors and see what happens when I do my clouds. I'm going to do filter render. That's our first filter we're using this year. And I have a nice clouds layer, but I want to see what it looks like as I move it down. So I'm changing the layer order here. And that looks pretty good. Notice when you use monochromatic colors that everything sort of blends nicely together. There's a uniformity when you use monochromatic colors that is quite pleasing. So I'm going to go ahead and change some of these shapes because I'd like to make my composition a little bit more interesting. So that was Command T. You get these little handles that you can drag. Remember, we want to keep this circle perfectly proportioned, so I'm still holding the Shift key when I do this. In order to finish that transformation, you hit the Enter key or Return key. I'm going to see what that looks like at a lower opacity. These are some choices that you can make. I think that looks much more interesting. I'm going to take my Move tool and I'm going to move my circle down a little bit lower, and then I'm going to choose my square layer, and I'm going to see what I can do with my square, maybe make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to hold that Shift key. These are some choices that you can do. Maybe I won't make this a perfect square. Maybe I'm going to make this a stripe that goes across. That kind of goes across maybe into the circle. I'm going to hit the Return key, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose my free shape. I'm going to move that. Maybe I'll make that a little bit larger too, see what happens. Maybe I'll change the transparency, see what kind of interesting effects I can get on the heart. So you can go ahead and play with these objects now until you create a composition, which means an arrangement of shapes that you think is kind of pleasing, because we're just going to play with this for a little while now. In this part of the movie, we're going to go over how to merge things down. So if I wanted to move all of these things together, what I could do is hold my Shift key and select these three layers. And I can move these objects together. They're temporarily locked together. So that's a convenient way to sort of rearrange things. When I click any place off them, then I can go back to moving one object at a time. But for this experiment, what we're going to do here is we talked about these eyeballs being the visibility of the layer. So I'm going to turn on just the layers that I'd like to merge right now. So instead of temporarily merging those layers, what I'm going to do is merge this free shape into the square layer, so it will make one layer. So I'm going to go down all the way at the bottom of the layers menu. You'll see something called Merge Down. The shortcut key is Command E. And when I click Merge Down, now look what happens. The square and the circle layer are together. If I merge this down one more time, layer merge down, I'm going to now include the circle in this grouping. Okay? Circle is spelled wrong, obviously, but so here we have those three merged down. Maybe I don't want to do that, so I'm going to step backward and I'm going to unmerge those. Because a quicker way to merge these things together is to do something called merge visible. Let me edit, step backward one more time. I could go down to merge visible, which is the last thing. Merge visible. There we go. Flatten. It's going to flatten the image. Now I have one object here. And our goal now is to create a pattern. A pattern is a series of shapes that repeat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this smaller version of my project, and I'm going to put it up here in the corner. I'm going to hit the Return key. And now we're going to talk about duplicating this layer. There's many ways to duplicate the layer. You can go up here. The second one after New Layer is Duplicate the Layer. So we say OK. And now where is that layer I just duplicated? Well, it's right underneath this one. And I'm going to duplicate this layer again. And I'm going to say OK to that. And where is this one? Well, it's right underneath that one. Now, the quickest way for me to get 6 of these would be I could still keep duplicating the layer, or we can do what we just learned. We can do Layer, Merge Visible. So merge visible is going to merge all those 3 layers together. And now I can reshape that one. And now in order to make 6 of these, all I have to do is duplicate this layer. Second choice is duplicate the layer. Say OK. Drag this one down. Maybe I want this one to be upside down, so I'm going to do Command T, and I'm going to flip this one. When you do Command T and you put your cursor right at the edge, hit the return key. If I do Command T, I'll show you that again. You see that bent arrow? It allows you to rotate your objects. So I'm going to rotate this one to create my pattern. And I'm going to say OK. I see that there's a little space there, so I'm going to just move that up just a tiny bit. And now what will happen if I merge these two? I'm going to merge visible again. And now I have 6 objects. And now I can go ahead and duplicate this layer, and in 1 second I can have 12 objects. Okay, and now I'm creating that repeated pattern that I'm going to fill the page with. I'm going to go ahead and merge down, merge visible again, duplicate again. Okay, and you can duplicate and merge and flip and turn over. Maybe I'll flip these over. I can do Command T, and I could take my little cursor and I can rotate this and flip it upside down, which looks almost the same. Look at that, doesn't make any difference. Maybe I'll make this one go this way and see what happens. So you can go ahead with your monochromatic color scheme. You're going to create an all-over pattern that's going to cover this entire space. We don't want to make the shapes too small so that you can't see them. So go ahead and do that and save this one again to your folder.